Hello world, and we are back. My name's Kyle Fischl, and this is going to be episode 135 of my poker vlog. For this one, I play a 2-5 session at One-Eyed Jacks at Sarasota, Florida. I have a ton of hands to go over, so we're going to get right into it today. So we arrive at One-Eyed Jack's poker room in Sarasota, Florida, hoping to gain on the momentum from the last session where we made over $2,000 in an hour. We buy into this game for $1,000 before the first hand of note. I'm under the gun with Queen Jack of Spades. I raise to $20. The player to my direct left and the big blind are the only callers, so we go three ways to a flop, which comes 4-4-4. When the big blind checks to me, I would bet here if I had pretty much any pocket pair as well as some ace highs. But unfortunately, queen high, I just don't think is good enough to be able to bet on this board. So we're just going to kind of check this one back and give up. But when the player to my direct left checks it back, we get to see a free turn card, which is the 10 of clubs. Okay, that's close to my hand, but still doesn't give me any kind of full house or any kind of connection. So big blind checks to me. I'm just going to check it back a second time. Not really willing to bluff at this. And the player to my left checks it back again. River is the jack of clubs. Actually puts three clubs out there and gives me the full house I was looking for. When the big blind checks to me, I'm going to bet small here. Maybe a disbelieving ace high will pay me off. Maybe deuces or threes or something that wasn't really comfortable to bet themselves will pay me. So I wager $30. But it's pretty obvious no one had anything as they both fold very, very quickly. We take down the first hand though, feels pretty good. The next hand of note, middle position raises to $20. I'm in the big blind with pocket jacks. I'm definitely going to raise this one up. Definitely like to build a pot and have a slightly wider than average 3 betting range, so jacks is definitely going to be in there. I make it $70. My opponent thinks for a little bit and then just basically min 4 bets to 150. This is a pretty much horrendous development. The sizing alone kind of makes me rule out a lot of ace kings and ace queens and things such as that. I think those hands would go a little bit bigger and try to maximize some fold equity. But the smaller size 4 bet really makes me lean towards he has queens plus. So I'll also have to play the hand out of position. So not really the best development here. And I'm just kind of going to let this one go. Not many people 4 bet. So got to give credit to the players who do. However, this is the first time I saw this player do it. He ended up 4 betting probably 4 times across 2 hours. And if I was one of the later times, I definitely would have peeled. But being the first one, this is just going to be a give credit and fold spot. Oh well, I'm sure we'll battle that player in the future. Next interesting hand. It folds all the way to me on the button. I have 9-10 of diamonds. I raise to $20. Only the big blind calls. We're heads up to a flop of king, queen, 4, rainbow, 1 diamond. When my opponent checks to me, I just expect this opponent to be on the tighter side and that he's just going to have a king or a queen some of the time and not be willing to fold to a single C bet. So I think this could be one of those times where I just kind of realize some equity and check, hope to get a safe return card. If he checks to me on the turn, I can put my bluff attempt out then and probably take it down. When I check it back, the turn is the 8 of diamonds. Gives me a backdoor diamond draw, so we're pretty happy with that. My opponent bets here. He leads off for $25. And I think he's probably relegated to a king or queen. Don't really think he's going to fold to a raise, as I don't really know what I could be repping here with a raise. So we're just going to call here, try to realize some equity. Any jack or diamond will give me probably the best hand. And the river is the 7 of diamonds. So we get there. This feels great. Unfortunately for me, my opponent checks to me. I want to go polar here, closer to pot size. I think if I had like ace jack or jack 10, something like that, I would also choose a bigger sizing when bluffing. So when I have the actual flush, I have to go bigger as well. So I bet $75, but my opponent pretty much insta folds. So probably not going to get any more value out of him with a smaller sizing. But that's okay, we take it down. And on the next hand of note, under the gun raises to $15. I'm in middle position with ace queen of clubs. I'm definitely going to 3-bet this one. I make it 50. Definitely like to play a bigger pot with a hand as good as this one. Only the pre-flop aggressor calls, so we're heads up to a flop of queen 9-3, 2 diamonds, and a spade. Flopping top feels pretty good. I consider putting this one into my check calling range where I flop top pair, top kicker, and just go for one straight up pot control before deciding how much to wager on any safe turn cards, but seeing the flush draw and the straight draw out there leads me to think that this one is functioning better as a bet. So I continuation bet for $60, get paid by diamonds, get paid by Jack 10, maybe some 9-8, things such as that. Well, my opponent takes a little bit of time before raising to $175.
I was plumb surprised.
I think top's just too good to fold to just one raise. I suppose he could do this with like king, queen, queen, jack, weaker queens to see where he's at as well as his diamonds. So I think this one just has to be a call. When I make the call, the turn is the 8 of spades. Completes Jack 10, brings backdoor spades. Definitely a board dynamic changing card, but it doesn't slow down my opponent at all. He continues for $275. Now I have to think about this one for a while. I don't really think diamond draws would give up at this spot, especially when the board gets a little more connected and you can get basically queens to fold here to a bet. I don't expect Jack 10 to slow down, especially as I could have a diamond draw and he would want to protect against that. I do expect sets and 2 pairs to slow down at some frequency, but I mean, there's no real great answer to this. I just feel like my opponent has me beat at this point and I just let it go. And my opponent is nice enough to show me pocket 9s. So I was behind the whole way. Definitely a decent sized pot going to my opponent. Not really the direction we're looking for. But following that, I button straddle. I have king queen offsuit. An early position player makes it $25. There's 2 callers. Offsuit king queen I think is too weak to 3-bet. So I'm going to just call this one. Get the play in position. Pretty decent hand. So we'll see what develops. The flop is king 10 5 2 hearts. We do have the queen of hearts, so that's pretty good. We flop top pair. We have a backdoor straight draw as well. A lot of stuff working for us here. The pre-flop aggressor checks, the other 2 players checks, and it's back to me. Seeing as how much I've been played back at today, I think that I'm going to just pot control this one, even against 3 other players. Don't want anyone laying in the weeds with a set, maybe queen jack. So we're just going to check this one back, hope for a safe turn card, and then try to thin the field then. The turn is the 3 of clubs. As safe as we could ever hope for. And on this card, the pre-flop aggressor bets $35. There's 1 player who calls. I think raising here is a bit of an overplay. I think all better hands are just going to call and worse hands are just going to fold. So I think calling is probably the best option. We could get protection against heart draws, but we do have the queen blocker, so we're not super concerned about that. And when I just call, the river is the jack of spades. And now both players check to me. Although King Jack was one of the main hands I get some value from, and on this particular board, I do think that neither opponent would check any 2 pair on this board. They would want to go for some value themselves. So I really think that I just have the best hand here. Very infrequently, I think the pre-flop aggressor will have ace king, and at that point I'm value-owning myself. But we're going to bet small here. There are hands such as king 9, queen jack, ace 10. Those type of hands will pay off a bet here of the smaller size. So I bet $55 going for a little bit of some thin value. The pre-flop aggressor calls and the other opponent folds. I show king queen and he also has king queen. So we chop this one up, but still it's a small win. We will take it. Following that, I have jack 10 of clubs in the hijack. I raise to $20. The small blind 3 bets to 60, and I'm going to make the call. We are heads up to a flop of 10 deuce deuce 2 spades. On this board, my opponent continues for $65. I really just expect him to do this with a lot of ace king, ace queen, ace jack. There are some pocket pairs higher than 10 that would do the same thing, but we will cross that bridge when we get to it. We can't really fold top pair decent kicker when we get to play in position and have plenty of safe turn cards where we can raise and announce our hand then and really put our opponent to the test if he has like an ace X type hand. So I make the call. The turn is the ace of diamonds. What a horrible card.
It's not possible. Not probable.
And now my opponent bets $135. I pretty much snap fold. I think if my opponent had jacks plus, he would take this card as a check. But if he had an ace king, ace X hand, he'd continue barreling here. So I truly believe that I had the best hand on the flop and turned pretty dead. Let me know what you think in the comments below if this is a fold or if I played this one alright. Kind of interested on this one. Well, we move to a new table. We're into the game for 1,400 at this point. Have only about 9 in front of us. Not quite the session we were hoping for. But on the first hand of this table, with a button straddle, a middle position player raises to $40. I call in the cutoff with King Jack offsuit. Button folds, so we're heads up to a flop of Queen Queen 5 2 clubs. My opponent bets $40 pretty quickly, and with the speed at which he bet, it really made me think that he just could never have a queen here. If my opponent flop trips on a somewhat draw heavy board, I expect him to take a little bit longer and think about the sizing and the action he wants to do. So I really discount him having the best possible hand on this board. Meanwhile, my just call, I could easily have Queen Jack, King Queen, Queen 10 some of the time. So I'm going to raise this one up. I get to play in position, and I can continue barreling on any 10, ace, jack, king, or club. So I think this is a pretty good spot with my hand to go for a raise bluff spot. I make it $120. My opponent instantly looks pretty frustrated, and that kind of leads me to believe that I'm going to barrel on any turn card if he calls no matter what, not just the ones I mentioned. But he eventually flashes pocket tens and throws them away, so I'd say this one was played pretty good by myself. Following that, Under the Gun raises to $20, folds all the way to the small blind who calls. I look down at King Queen of spades. I'm definitely going to put this in my 3-betting range. It's suited. I expect to have one of the better hands here, as both my opponents have been playing a little bit wild, a little bit loose, so we're going to play a bigger pot with this exact holding. When I raise to $70, the Under the Gun player calls and the small blind folds, so we're going heads up to a flop of 7-5-5-1 spade. This is a great board for a 3-better. I have all the overpairs in range, and I'm going to go with trying to represent those with a continuation bet. I also don't expect my opponent to connect with this board pretty much ever, so 75 will be the wager, and it will get it done as my opponent pretty quickly folds. So winning good hands on bluffs, not really making hands to get paid, but we'll see if we can turn that around. When the button makes it $20, I call in the big blind with ace 9 of hearts. We are heads up to a flop of Queen 9 5 2 spades and 1 heart. Middle pair backdoor flush draw feels pretty good. My opponent seems to agree as he bets $25. I don't think I can fold just yet. He could easily have spade draws. He could have Jack 10. He could have Ace King. And he's the button. Like, how often does the button actually have a queen? I think more often they're just c-betting because they have position and they've raised pre. They have the widest range. They don't have to have a good hand here at all. So I make the call. When it turns the 4 of clubs, it doesn't really change anything, but my opponent doesn't even slow down. He bets $50. I do think 2 barrels are relegated with all the draws pre-mentioned, so I'm going to continue a second time.
Living like this with no consequences.
River is the 3 of hearts. Hearts get there just a little bit too late for me. I'm probably going to have to give up if my opponent goes for 3 barrels, but when I check to him, he checks it back and shows Ace Queen.
There are always consequences.
So not the greatest result for me. Lose about $100 in this hand, and the Queen 9 high boards are not doing me justice today. On the next interesting hand, a late position player raised to $15. The button calls. I'm in the big blind with pocket kings. Got a premium. Time to make some money. I make it $50. Well, both of my opponents decide to call, so we're actually going 3 ways to a flop of King 10 3. 2 spades. Well, I flop top set, so it's currently the nuts. A lot of things can change by the river, but as I block a lot of the strongest hands besides draws, I'm going to bet small here. The Queen Jack or the spades are going to pay off any sizing anyway, so I'm going to go for a small size here and a big size on the turn given any safe turn cards. I bet $50. The later position player calls and the button folds, so we're going heads up to a turn card, which is the 9 of hearts. Not a particularly safe one. Queen Jack is one of the obvious draws that gets there. I think I'm relegated to check the turn, and if checked back, go for some big value on the river. Otherwise, we can just go into check call mode. When I check, my opponent bets $80. Also kind of a small sizing. I'd say somewhat value heavy, so I guess it is possible he could have Queen Jack here. But top set, too good to fold. Dealer, can you pair the board for me one time? Nope. 8 of hearts. Hearts get there, but we do block it. We're not super worried about that specifically. And also not really worried about 6-7. So it's really just, does he have Queen Jack or did he miss? Having top set makes me believe that I block a lot of the top pair value hands. But when I check, my opponent checks it back saying he has a king. And I have 2 of them, so I will definitely win this one. Probably did not get max value on this one, but we will take the win. Following that, I'm under the gun. I have Jack 9 of clubs. I raise to $15. Only a middle position player calls, so we are heads up to a flop of Jack 8-3 Rainbow. Well, flopping top pair, decent kicker. I'm definitely going to bet this one. My specific opponent has been pretty sticky. He's called down with 3rd and 4th pair against me and other opponents, so we're going to be happy to bet this Jack here. I bet $25. My opponent calls pretty quickly. Turn is the Jack of Diamonds, turning trips. I actually think this will make my opponent more likely to call down with 2nd or 3rd pair because he has in the past, so I can go for some pretty pure value here. I bet 50 on the turn. My opponent calls. River is the 3 of Diamonds. Diamond's complete, but now it's double paired. If he has a 3, I expect him to just rip over my open. If he has an 8, I expect him to call. If he has diamonds, he'll probably call. So I can still go relatively big with this one. I make it $150. But after about a 20 to 30 second tank, he finally counts it out and throws it in there. My full house will definitely be good. Happy to drag this one in. Following that, with a button straddle, there's 1 limp. I look down at ace king off suit. I raise to $45. Both the button and the limper call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of ace 6-3 Rainbow. As I have top pair, top kicker, I'm going to bet here weaker aces will pay me off, and having 2 people that called, it's somewhat likely one of them will have an ace. Maybe a medium pocket pair that'll pay off 1 or multiple bets. Additionally, I would make this bet if I had kings, queens, jacks, just repping the ace, so I gotta do it when I have the ace king as well. I bet $70. But unfortunately for me, both players fold, but we still take down a decent sized pot. Pretty happy with this one. Following that, with a button straddle, early position player raises to $35. I'm on the cutoff with ace 10 of hearts. You can 3-bet this one, you can call. I choose to just call this one, get to play it in position and see what develops. The button calls as well, so we are 3 ways to a flop of king, deuce, deuce, 2 hearts. When the preflop aggressor checks to me, I think I can check this one back, realize some equity. I actually think my opponent would c-bet if he had a king with this draw-heavy board. So I'm kind of leaning towards he whiffed completely. And I can go for a delayed c-bet rather than betting now. Get some information from the button, see if he has a king before I throw out this bet. When I check, the button checks it back. So pretty confident that I have the best hand right now. Turn is the queen of spades. And it checks to me a second time. Now picking up a gut shot. We're definitely going to go for a bluff attempt here. Hopefully we can get like jack 10... 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe pocket 5s to fold, things like that. So I bet $85. Well, the preflop aggressor is the only caller, so we're heads up to a river. Hopefully I can connect. Not today, as it is the 6 of diamonds. When my opponent checks to me, I just expect that he's going to call any bet. The obvious draws all missed. It's really not a great river card to bluff at, in my opinion. So I kind of passively check this one back. And he has queen 7 off suit. So very disappointed. I can't believe he actually raised with that hand. Also wish I would have gone for the bluff on the river because it probably works out, but I choose not to on this hand. Next hand of note. We look down at pocket aces, and when an early position player raises to $15, we are 3-betting this one to 50, ready to win a big pot and actually get out of the hole. But not today. Everyone folds. Dang it. After that, we look down at king 10 offsuit, king of spades, 10 of hearts, and when a later position player raises to 20, we're on the button. We're going to call. Both blinds call, so we're 4 ways to a flop of jack 5-3 all hearts. It checks the preflop aggressor who bets $20. This is a board where I think I can peel. With such a small bet, it makes me believe my opponent has a weakish hand. Very rarely do I think he actually flopped a flush, so he's either relegated to just the naked ace or king of hearts or a weak jack when he bets like this. So I'm definitely going to make the call on this one, possibly steal it later. When the turn is the 9 of diamonds, giving me a gut shot helps me out a little bit with my exact hand, and now my opponent checks to me. Well, I did not call the flop to turn some equity and then just check it back. So we're going to go for a bigger sizing, really try to put some pressure on some jacks, some single heart holdings. Hopefully get a fold, otherwise we can realize some equity on the river. I bet $80, and on this hand, my opponent calls. So somewhat disappointed. Can we please get some connection? One time dealer? Nope, 4 of diamonds. Well, that's not quite what I was looking for. But when my opponent checks it to me a second time, this is going to be the time where I actually throw out the third barrel. I think that having the 10 of hearts blocker is good. I block some flushes. I could have some flopped flushes that would play the exact same way. I don't really expect my opponent to have better than a single pair of jacks, so hopefully he'll just give me credit for a flush and fold when I bet $180. After I place this bet, my opponent thinks for probably 20 to 30 seconds, hoping for a fold this time. Last time my opponent thought for a bit, they called.
I think I'd like you to leave.
He's got a massive stack, like 3 to 4K in front of him, so it wouldn't even be that much. But he does let it go, so we get a pretty sick bluff through, and that seems to be the only way we can win some hands on this day. Before a final hand of note, I'm in early position with ace-10 of spades. I raise up to $20. With one call, a middle position player raises to $60. Not exactly what I'm looking for, but either way, I'm going to call this one. Hopefully flop an ace, flop some spades, but none of that happens when we go three ways to a queen 8-7 board rainbow, and we check it to the pre-flop 3-better who bets $75, and this is just going to be a fold. Sometimes you just miss a lot, and that was kind of happening to me today. So we are into the game for $1,400. Out of the game for $500, which is a $900 loss across 6 hours, equates to $150 an hour or 30 big blinds an hour. Yeah, towards the end, I lost a decent-sized double board bomb pot, which I did not get on camera. Also not caught on camera, I had king-queen on king 4-4, 9-7 at the river facing a $150 bet when the clubs miss. When I beat king jack, king 10, I think it's just a pretty standard call. What's not standard is my opponent called 33 with 7-4. I'm going to just say it was suited, even though I'm not quite sure it was, but either way, not really the hand you expect to run into. Ace-4 some of the time, yes, maybe 4-5, not 7-4, but it did happen. So the results were not quite where I wanted them today, but there will always be another chance to get it back next week.